The diplomatic incident. Marcus Reed had exactly 3 qualifications for his current assignment aboard Unity Station. He could fix a malfunctioning air recycler with a paperclip and determination. He had never started an interstellar incident, and most importantly, he happened to be in the wrong corridor at the wrong time when Ambassador Chen collapsed from Rigelian flu. "This is a terrible idea," Marcus muttered, tugging at the collar of his hastily issued diplomatic uniform. The fabric felt wrong, too stiff, too formal, like wearing someone else's skin. He was a maintenance engineer, not a diplomat. His expertise involved ductwork and electrical systems, not the delicate dance of interspecies politics. "You'll be fine," Lieutenant Yarrow assured him, practically shoving him toward the reception hall. "Just smile, nod, and don't touch anything. Especially don't touch anyone. Different species have different personal space requirements." "That's incredibly helpful and not at all vague," Marcus said, but Yarrow had already disappeared back into the staff corridors, leaving Marcus alone before the massive doors of the grand reception hall. The doors opened with a hydraulic hiss that sounded like the station itself was sighing at his inadequacy. Marcus stepped into controlled chaos. The reception hall stretched before him like a miniature galaxy, filled with representatives from dozens of species. Crystalline Methodians refracted light in rainbow patterns across the floor. Gaseous ephemerians floated in specialized containment suits that gave them vaguely humanoid shapes. A group of insectoid trash clicked and chittered in the corner, their translator devices rendering their conversation as polite small talk about trade routes. And everywhere, there were protocols Marcus didn't understand. The humans present moved through the crowd with practiced ease, but Marcus felt like he was navigating a minefield blindfolded. He grabbed a glass of something blue and fizzing from a passing service drone, hoping it was at least compatible with human biology. "First time?" a voice asked beside him. Marcus turned to find a Centaurian diplomat, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence with what he hoped was friendliness. "That obvious? You're holding your drink like it might explode. Relax. Most species here are more nervous about offending you than you should be about offending them. Humans have a reputation for being unpredictably dangerous when provoked." "That's not exactly comforting," Marcus said, but he did relax his grip on the glass. The Centaurian laughed, a sound like wind chimes. "Just maintain respectful distance, don't make sudden moves, and you'll survive the evening. Oh, and if you see a Kvalian, give them extra space. They're particular about physical boundaries." "Kvalian. Right. What do they look like?" But the Centaurian had already been swept away by a group of her colleagues, leaving Marcus with partial information and growing anxiety. He drifted through the crowd, nodding politely, trying to look like he belonged. The reception was meant to celebrate the 5th anniversary of the Unity Alliance, a coalition of species committed to mutual cooperation and defense. It was important. It was historic. And Marcus was absolutely going to ruin it somehow. The crowd surged suddenly, driven by the arrival of some dignitary Marcus couldn't see. Bodies pressed together, species mixing in ways that would have seemed impossible a decade ago. Marcus found himself pushed sideways, stumbling, his drink sloshing dangerously. He reached out to steady himself, his hand grasping for purchase. His palm connected with something firm and muscular, covered in what felt like leather armor. He squeezed slightly for balance, registering warmth and an unexpected softness beneath the rigid exterior plating. Time seemed to freeze. A voice cut through the ambient noise like a plasma cutter through hull plating. "How dare you?" Marcus looked up, and up, and up. The being before him stood nearly 7 feet tall, with skin that shimmered between deep purple and midnight blue depending on the light. She was humanoid in basic structure, but there was nothing human about her. Powerful muscles moved beneath her skin with predatory grace. Her face was angular and fierce, with high cheekbones and eyes that glowed a bright amber, currently fixed on Marcus with an expression of absolute fury. 2 curved horns swept back from her temples, polished to a mirror shine. She wore armor that seemed both ceremonial and functional, dark metal plates adorned with symbols Marcus didn't recognize. And Marcus's hand was still resting on her posterior. He yanked it back as if burned. "I am so sorry." The crowd pushed. "I was falling, I didn't mean. You touched my honor mark." Her voice was low and dangerous, with harmonics that his translator rendered as barely controlled rage. "You, a human, placed your hand upon the symbol of my rank and lineage." The crowd around them had gone silent. Marcus became acutely aware of hundreds of eyes, stalks, and optical sensors turning their direction. Somewhere in the distance, he heard a human voice whisper, "Oh no, that's Commander Zerathix. This is bad." "I really, truly didn't mean to," Marcus said, hands raised in what he hoped was a universal gesture of apology. "I'm not even supposed to be here. I'm a maintenance engineer. The actual ambassador is sick, and they needed someone to fill in, and I promise you I had no idea about honor marks or cultural significance or—" Silence. Zerathix stepped closer, and Marcus fought every instinct to step back. He'd heard about Kvalyans now that he could put a name to the species. Warrior diplomats from a harsh world where honor meant everything. Their culture was built on complex hierarchies, ancient traditions, and a code of conduct that made human etiquette look like finger painting. And he'd just grabbed her ass in front of everyone. "Among my people," Zerathix said, her voice carrying across the now silent hall, "the honor mark is sacred. It is earned through trials of combat, intelligence, and leadership. It represents our place in society, our achievements, our very identity. To touch another's honor mark without permission is to challenge their right to exist." "I didn't know." Marcus protested. "I'm sorry, genuinely sorry. What can I do to fix this?" Zerathix's eyes narrowed. "You cannot fix this. The insult has been given. In the old ways, I would challenge you to mortal combat and claim your life as recompense." The room seemed to hold its collective breath. Marcus felt his heart hammering against his ribs. This couldn't be happening. He'd survived 3 tours on frontier stations, lived through depressurization events and reactor malfunctions, and he was going to die because of an accidental grab at a diplomatic reception. However, Zerathix continued, and Marcus dared to hope, "We are not on my homeworld. We are aboard Unity Station, under Alliance law. And the Alliance has protocols for cultural transgressions." She turned, addressing the crowd. "I invoke the right of restoration. This human will undergo the trial of understanding, and through it, prove whether he is worthy of forgiveness or deserving of exile from Kvalyan space." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A human official Marcus vaguely recognized pushed through the throng. "Commander Zerathix, surely we can resolve this through diplomatic channels. The contact was accidental, unintentional. Mr. Reed meant no disrespect." "Intent is irrelevant," Zerathix replied. "Action is all that matters. He touched what was not his to touch. He must face the consequences, or the Kvalyan Confederation will consider this a deliberate insult from humanity itself." Marcus's mind raced. This had escalated far beyond a personal mistake. If he refused, it could damage relations between humans and Kvalyans, potentially fracturing the Unity Alliance. If he accepted and failed whatever this trial entailed, he'd be exiled, barred from Kvalyan space. Given that Kvalyans controlled several crucial trade routes and 3 strategic defensive positions, his failure could have far-reaching consequences. "I'll do it," Marcus heard himself say. "The trial of understanding. I'll undergo it." Zerathix's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those amber eyes. Surprise, maybe, or respect. "You accept, knowing you may fail." "I accept, knowing I made a mistake and need to make it right," Marcus said, surprised by the steadiness in his own voice. "I don't know your culture, Commander, but I'm willing to learn. And if that means proving myself through some trial, then that's what I'll do." For a long moment, Zerathix studied him. Then she inclined her head slightly, a gesture that might have been acknowledgement. "So be it. The trial will commence in 3 days. Use that time to prepare, human." You will need it. She turned and strode from the hall, her presence commanding the crowd to part before her. The moment she disappeared through the doors, the reception erupted into frantic conversation. Marcus stood at the center of it, shell-shocked and trying to process what had just happened. The human official who tried to intervene grabbed Marcus's arm. "Do you have any idea what you've just agreed to?" "Not even slightly," Marcus admitted. The trial of understanding is a Kvailian ritual designed to test whether an outsider can truly comprehend their values. It's part mental challenge, part physical ordeal, and entirely based on cultural knowledge you don't have. People study for years to pass it. Great. I have 3 days. This isn't funny, Reed. If you fail, you'll be declared honor-blind in Kvailian law. You'll be prohibited from entering their territory, conducting business with their people, or speaking with their representatives. And given your role as the human who underwent the trial, it'll reflect on all of us. Marcus felt the weight of it settling on his shoulders like a physical thing. Then I guess I'd better not fail. The official stared at him. How are you so calm? I'm not, Marcus said honestly. I'm absolutely terrified. But I've learned something working maintenance on frontier stations: when something breaks, you fix it. You don't panic, you don't make excuses, you just figure out what needs to be done and you do it. He took a shaky breath. I broke something tonight. Something important. So now I fix it. The official's expression softened slightly. I'll have all available information on Kvailian culture and the trial of understanding sent to your quarters. And Reed? For what it's worth, Ambassador Chen would have refused the trial and tried to negotiate. You might be a maintenance engineer, but you just made a more diplomatic choice than most diplomats would have. As the official walked away, Marcus stood alone in the slowly dispersing crowd, replaying the last 10 minutes in his mind. He'd grabbed a Kvailian commander's honor mark, been threatened with mortal combat, agreed to some kind of cultural trial, and potentially put human-Kvailian relations on the line. All because he'd been in the wrong corridor at the wrong time. He looked down at his hand, the one that had started this entire disaster. Great job, he muttered. Really stellar work there. Somewhere in the station, Commander Zerathix was probably preparing for the trial, confident in her cultural superiority and certain that this ignorant human would fail. Marcus had 3 days to prove her wrong, 3 days to learn an entire culture's worth of values and traditions, 3 days to somehow turn this catastrophe into something resembling redemption. He finished his drink in one long swallow, discovered it tasted like carbonated regret, and headed for his quarters. He had a lot of reading to do. And somewhere in the back of his mind, beneath the panic and the pressure, Marcus couldn't help but notice that Commander Zerathix, for all her fury and her threats, had given him a chance. She could have pressed for harsher penalties, could have made this a full diplomatic incident. Instead, she'd offered a trial, a path to restoration. Maybe, just maybe, there was more to this than simple outrage. But that was a thought for later. Right now, Marcus had to figure out how to pass a trial he didn't understand, to prove himself to a species he barely knew, and to somehow not destroy humanity's reputation in the process. Just another day in the life of a maintenance engineer turned accidental diplomat. The doors to his quarters hissed open, and Marcus stepped inside, already pulling up files on his datapad. 3 days. He could do this. He had to. Understanding and connection the next morning arrived too quickly, dragging Marcus from restless sleep filled with dreams of angry Kvailian warriors and diplomatic disasters. His quarters looked like a research station had exploded. Datapads covered every surface, holographic displays flickered with Kvailian cultural texts, and empty coffee containers formed a small monument to his desperation. Marcus had spent the entire night reading everything he could find about Kvailian culture. What he'd learned was both fascinating and terrifying. The Kvailians came from a world called Kvalnara, a planet of extreme temperatures, hostile wildlife, and limited resources. Survival had required strength, yes, but also cunning, cooperation, and an intricate social structure that prevented internal conflict from destroying them before they reached the stars. Honor marks were the visible representation of that structure. Earned through specific trials at different life stages, they were tattooed onto various parts of the body with bioluminescent ink that responded to the individual's emotions. Kvailian's honor marks told their entire life story to anyone who could read them. Position, achievements, family lineage, combat victories, scholarly accomplishments, everything that mattered, and Marcus had grabbed Commander Zerathix's primary honor mark, the one located on the lower back and upper hip area, the mark that represented her command authority and leadership status. Smooth, Marcus. Really smooth, he muttered, rubbing his eyes and reaching for another coffee. A chime at his door interrupted his self-recrimination. Marcus opened it to find a young ensign holding a small package. Delivery for you, sir. From Commander Zerathix. Marcus's stomach dropped. From her directly? Yes, sir. She said you'd need this for the trial. The ensign handed over the package and hurried away, clearly not wanting to be associated with the human who'd caused an interstellar incident. Inside the package was a data crystal and a handwritten note on actual paper, a material that was rare and expensive in space. The handwriting was precise and angular, matching Zera's personality perfectly. Human. If you are to undergo the trial of understanding, you must at least comprehend what you are facing. This crystal contains the historical records of the last 50 trials. Study them. Learn. Do not waste my time with ignorance-born failure. Commander Z. Marcus stared at the note, surprised by the gesture. Zerathix had no obligation to help him. In fact, watching him fail would probably satisfy her sense of justice. Yet here was guidance, resources, a path forward. He loaded the crystal into his terminal and spent the next 6 hours immersed in trial records. What he saw humbled him. The trial of understanding wasn't just a test of knowledge. It was a gauntlet designed to break preconceptions and force participants to genuinely see the world through Kvailian eyes. Previous participants had faced combat scenarios where winning meant failure because they hadn't understood the Kvailian concept of honorable restraint. They'd solved logic puzzles incorrectly because they'd applied their own species' values instead of Kvailian priorities. They'd failed diplomatic challenges by being too aggressive or too passive, missing the delicate balance that Kvailian culture demanded, and the physical component looked brutal. Kvailians were stronger, faster, and more durable than humans. The trial didn't account for species differences. You either met the standard or you failed. Marcus was contemplating the impossibility of his situation when his door chimed again. This time, when he opened it, Commander Zerathix herself stood in the corridor. She looked different outside the formal reception environment. Still imposing, still radiating controlled power, but wearing practical training attire instead of ceremonial armor. The honor marks visible on her arms glowed faintly with blue and purple light, and Marcus now understood enough to recognize marks of military achievement, scholarly excellence, and diplomatic service. Commander, Marcus said, stepping back instinctively. You studied the records. It wasn't a question. Zerathix's amber eyes seemed to catalog everything about him in a single glance, the exhaustion in his face, the coffee stains on his shirt, the desperate determination in his posture. All night, Marcus admitted. And this morning. And I'm still not sure I understand half of what I'm supposed to know. Good. Marcus blinked. Good. Uncertainty is the beginning of wisdom, Zerathix said, stepping into his quarters without invitation. She moved through the space like a predator assessing territory, taking in the scattered data pads and notes. Those who believe they understand are the ones who fail most spectacularly. You at least recognize the depth of your ignorance. That's probably the nicest way anyone's ever called me stupid, Marcus said, then winced. Sorry. Humor is a defense mechanism for me. I have noticed. Zerathix turned to face him, and Marcus was struck again by how alien she was, how utterly different from any human, yet how remarkably expressive her features could be. I came to propose an arrangement. An arrangement? The trial is in 2 days. You will fail without proper preparation, which wastes my time and damages both our people's relationship. Therefore, I will train you. She held up a hand, forestalling his response. This is not kindness. This is practicality. If you must undergo the trial, you should at least present a legitimate challenge. Otherwise, the ritual becomes meaningless. Marcus studied her, trying to understand the calculus behind the offer. You want me to succeed? I want you to be worthy of success or failure, Zerathix corrected. There is a difference. Well, do you accept, or will you continue stumbling through preparation alone? Every instinct told Marcus this was significant, that Zerathix was offering more than just training. This was a chance to actually understand, to bridge the gap between their species in a way that went beyond diplomatic pleasantries. I accept, Marcus said. And thank you, Commander. Do not thank me yet. Kvalian training is not gentle. She glanced at the chronometer on the wall. We begin in 1 hour. Wear clothing you do not mind destroying. Meet me in Training Facility 7. She left before Marcus could respond, leaving him alone with his racing thoughts and the overwhelming realization that the next 2 days would either save his career or end it spectacularly. Training Facility 7 turned out to be a large, multi-level space designed to accommodate various species' exercise requirements. Zerathix had reserved the entire area, and when Marcus arrived, she was already in motion, flowing through a series of combat forms that looked like violence rendered as art. You're late, she said without breaking rhythm. Marcus checked his chronometer. By 30 seconds. Lateness is lateness. In combat, 30 seconds means death. In diplomacy, 30 seconds means war. She completed the form and turned to face him. First lesson, precision matters. Kvalians do not accept approximation. For the next 4 hours, Zerathix put Marcus through exercises that tested every aspect of his physical and mental capacity. She taught him Kvalian combat philosophy, which emphasized controlled aggression and defensive superiority. She drilled him on cultural protocols, correcting his stance, his tone, his assumptions with relentless efficiency. Why do Kvalians value restraint in combat? She demanded, circling him as he held a defensive position. Because unnecessary violence weakens the community, Marcus panted, muscles screaming. Every warrior lost is a resource squandered. Victory should be achieved with minimal cost. Adequate. Why then do we celebrate warrior achievement? Because skill in combat demonstrates discipline, training, and commitment to protecting others. It's not about killing. It's about capability. Better. Zerathix nodded approval. You learn quickly for a human. They broke for water, and Marcus collapsed against the wall, grateful for the reprieve. Zerathix barely looked winded, standing straight and alert, her honor marks pulsing with what he now recognized as satisfaction. Can I ask you something? Marcus ventured. You may ask. I may not answer. Why are you really helping me? And please don't say it's just practicality. You could let me fail and be done with this entire situation. Zerathix was quiet for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she moved to sit beside him, a gesture that seemed deliberately chosen to reduce the physical disparity between them. When you grabbed my honor mark, she said slowly, my first reaction was rage. Pure, instinctive fury at the violation. But in the moment after, when I saw your face, I recognized something. Terror. Marcus suggested. Genuine remorse, Zerathix corrected. Not fear of consequences. Not calculated apology. Real regret for causing harm, even unknowing harm. That is rare. She looked at him directly, and Marcus found himself unable to look away from those amber eyes. Many species apologize to avoid punishment. Few apologize because they truly understand they have wronged another being. You did not know our customs, but you knew immediately you had caused pain. That suggested capacity for understanding. Marcus felt something shift in his chest, a recognition that this moment mattered in ways beyond the trial. My species has a long history of causing harm through ignorance, he said quietly. We're trying to be better. I'm trying to be better. Trying is insufficient, Zarathik said, but her tone wasn't harsh. Succeeding is what matters. But the attempt, the genuine attempt, has value. She stood, offering him a hand. Come. We have much more to cover before the trial. The next day and a half blurred together in a haze of training, studying, and brief snatches of sleep. Zarathix proved to be a demanding but surprisingly patient instructor. She pushed Marcus to his limits, then showed him how to expand those limits. She taught him to read Kvailian body language, to understand the subtle hierarchies in their social interactions, to recognize the difference between honor-bound obligation and genuine respect, and gradually, Marcus began to see not just what Kvailians valued, but why. Their culture wasn't arbitrary rules and strange traditions. It was a survival mechanism refined over millennia, a way of maintaining social cohesion in environments that would destroy species built on individualism or chaos. On the evening before the trial, as they finished their final training session, Zarathik surprised him with a question. Why do you serve aboard this station, Marcus Reed? It was the first time she'd used his given name. Marcus paused, considering his answer carefully. Because out here, on the frontier, nothing is certain, he said. Every day you solve problems that don't have easy answers. Every system can fail, every crisis requires adaptation. It's where I feel most useful, most needed. I'm not great at playing politics or following rules I don't understand. But I'm excellent at fixing things that are broken, at making impossible systems work. He smiled ruefully. Though apparently that skill set doesn't prevent me from causing diplomatic incidents. You undervalue yourself, Zarathik said. Your willingness to adapt, to learn, to acknowledge failure and grow from it, these are precisely the skills that make great diplomats. Not flowery speeches or memorized protocols, but genuine connection. Is that what this has been? Marcus asked. Connection. Zarathix's honor marks flared brighter for a moment, cycling through colors Marcus had learned indicated complex emotions. Perhaps, she said carefully. I did not expect to find a human I could respect. Your species is young, chaotic, often frustratingly illogical. But you have shown me that chaos can contain patterns, that youth can carry wisdom, that logic is not the only path to understanding. Marcus felt warmth spread through his chest, a sensation that had nothing to do with physical exertion. For what it's worth, you've shown me that order doesn't have to mean rigidity, that tradition can be flexible, that honor is about integrity, not just reputation. They stood in the training facility, human and Kvailian, separated by vast evolutionary paths but connected by something neither quite knew how to name. The trial begins at dawn, Zarathik said finally. Rest tonight. You will need your strength. Will you be there? I must be. I am the one who invoked the right of restoration. I will serve as your judge. She hesitated, then added, I will be fair, Marcus Reed. Whatever happens, know that you have earned that much. The trial took place in a ceremonial arena within the Kvailian section of Unity Station. Marcus entered to find a gallery of observers, Kvailian dignitaries, human officials, and representatives from dozens of other species, all gathered to witness this test of cultural understanding. Zarathik stood at the center of the arena, once again in full ceremonial armor, every inch the imposing commander who had threatened him 3 days ago. But Marcus could see past that now, could read the subtle tension in her posture, the way her honor marks pulsed with something that might have been anticipation or concern. Marcus Reed, she announced, her voice carrying across the arena. You stand before us seeking restoration of honor. You have studied our ways. Now you must prove your understanding. The trial consists of 3 challenges: wisdom, strength, and sacrifice. Are you prepared? Marcus stepped forward, wearing simple training clothes and carrying nothing but the knowledge Zarathix had given him. I am prepared, Commander. Then let us begin. The wisdom challenge came first. Marcus was presented with scenarios, complex moral and ethical situations drawn from Kvailian history. He had to judge each one, explain his reasoning, demonstrate that he understood not just what Kvailians valued, but why. It was mentally exhausting, each question a trap that could spring shut if he relied on human assumptions instead of Kvalian priorities. But Zerathix had trained him well. Marcus navigated the challenges, stumbling occasionally but always finding his way back to the core principles she'd taught him. Balance. Restraint. Community over individual. Honor through action, not words. The strength challenge tested his physical limits. Marcus faced combat simulations against holographic opponents, not to defeat them, but to demonstrate proper technique, appropriate force, and honorable conduct. He took hits that would have felled him days ago, using pain to sharpen his focus rather than cloud it. His human body couldn't match Kvalian physical superiority, but he showed he understood how to fight with honor rather than desperation. And then came the final challenge, sacrifice. Zerathix stood before him, and Marcus saw something flicker in her eyes, something that looked almost like regret. The final test, she said, requires you to choose. Before you are two paths. One path leads to your exoneration. You pass the trial, honor is restored, all continues as before. The second path. She paused, and Marcus saw her honor marks dim slightly. The second path allows you to claim that I have been unfair, that the trial was impossible, that Kvalian culture is too rigid to accommodate other species. You would fail, but you would take no blame. The fault would be ours. Marcus stared at her, understanding the test immediately. This wasn't about him at all. This was about whether he would protect himself at the cost of Kvalian reputation, whether he truly understood that honor meant accepting consequences rather than deflecting them. There is no second path, Marcus said clearly, his voice carrying across the arena. Not for me. I made a mistake. I took responsibility for it. If I fail this trial, it's because I failed to learn, not because the teaching was inadequate. Commander Zerathix has shown me more patience, more wisdom, and more honor than I had any right to expect. Whatever judgment comes, it will be fair, because she is fair. The arena went absolutely silent. Then, slowly, Zerathix inclined her head, a gesture of profound respect. You have passed the trial of understanding, she announced. Not because you answered every question correctly, not because you demonstrated perfect technique, but because you proved you understand what honor truly means. You chose integrity over convenience. You chose truth over self-protection. These are the foundations of Kvalian culture, and you have embodied them. She stepped closer, and Marcus saw that her honor marks were blazing bright with colors he'd learned indicated pride and satisfaction. More than that, she continued, her voice softer now, you have taught me something as well. You have shown me that understanding can flow both directions, that teacher and student are not fixed roles, that connection between species requires mutual respect and growth. Zerathix reached out, and this time when she touched Marcus, it was deliberate and gentle. She placed her palm against his chest, over his heart, a Kvalian gesture that indicated deep personal respect. Thank you, Marcus Reed, she said. For proving that humanity deserves our alliance. And for reminding me why such alliances matter. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the moment, by the weight of what had just transpired. Thank you for giving me the chance, he managed. For seeing past my mistake to the person trying to make it right. The gallery erupted in sounds of approval, dozens of species celebrating this small victory of understanding over prejudice. But Marcus barely heard them. He was focused on Zerathix, on the way her expression had softened, on the connection that hummed between them like an electrical current. Later, after the ceremony concluded and the crowds dispersed, Marcus found Zerathix on one of the station's observation decks, gazing out at the stars. Commander, he said, approaching carefully. Zera, she corrected. We have moved beyond titles, I think. Zera, Marcus repeated, liking the feel of her name. I wanted to ask, what happens now? I mean, the trial is over, honor is restored, but we discovered something unexpected, Zera finished. Yes. I felt it too. She turned to face him, and in the starlight, her honor marks glowed like constellations mapped across her skin. My people do not form connections easily, Marcus. We are careful, measured, slow to trust. But when we do connect, it is profound and lasting. Are you saying? Marcus hardly dared hope. I am saying that perhaps your accidental touch was not a disaster but an opportunity. Perhaps it brought together two beings who needed to meet, to learn from each other, to discover that difference can be strength rather than division. She smiled, and it transformed her face from fierce to beautiful. If you are willing, I would like to explore that possibility. Slowly, carefully, with full understanding of what it means. Marcus felt joy surge through him, bright and unexpected. I would like that very much. Though I should warn you, I'm probably going to make more mistakes. Maybe not grabbing your honor mark level mistakes, but mistakes nonetheless. Then I will help you learn from them, Zara said. Just as you will help me learn to be less rigid, more adaptable. We will teach each other. She offered her hand, and Marcus took it, marveling at the warmth of her skin, the strength in her grip, the promise in the gesture. Around them, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, indifferent to the small miracle occurring on Unity Station. A human and a Kvalian, brought together by accident and choice, proving that connection could bridge any divide. 3 months later, Ambassador Chen returned to duty, fully recovered from Rigelian flu. She found her desk cleared, her files organized, and a detailed report from Marcus Reed explaining everything that had transpired in her absence. At the bottom of the report, in Marcus's handwriting, was a single note, learned valuable lesson about diplomatic protocols. We'll stick to maintenance from now on. Probably. Maybe. Actually, Commander Zarathix has offered to teach me proper diplomatic procedures. Turns out I'm not terrible at this after all. Who knew? Chen smiled, filed the report, and made a mental note to personally thank whoever had decided to put Marcus Reed in the wrong corridor at exactly the right time. Sometimes the best diplomatic victories came from the most unlikely sources. And sometimes, what started as disaster ended as exactly what everyone needed. The end.